Someone sitting here in India might say that, why do I care what's happening in California? How does it even bother me? But the fact is, 62% of the states in India, a lot of people might not notice, 62% of the states in India are also fire prone. And a lot of states in India have chances of forest fires as well. And we can be rest assured that when something like this happens, even our systems will be found wanting. So what are the lessons that India can today learn looking at what's happening in a country like the United States of America?
Good evening, Ashish. So first thing, as in, it's not as if we are talking hypothetically about India. It's great that we are actually, there's been a national coverage in India with regard to fire in California. Since morning, we've seen most channels actually running it almost like a breaking news and continuous coverage. Reality is that India has its own forest fire and enough of it. Unfortunately, doesn't find as much mention or continued mention as perhaps a fire in California has. Reality is that year after year, there are thousands of acres of forest that's actually been gutted in various parts of the country. And one of the, and we've seen in Himachal, we've seen in the Himalayas, we've seen in Uttarakhand. In many of these states, there has been several. So, and it is an annual occurrence. The way we're talking about California, we're calling it unprecedented. But the reason why we're calling it unprecedented is because, it's happening also in January. Usually, California fires were restricted earlier to the month of November and December, not in this kind of winter in that sense. But of course, and that's where there is instance of climate change. There's also a lot of conversation around how there's been a increase, 65% increase or more in dry vegetation in California area. And then when you ask me that important question, that what's the learning? There's zero learning that we actually have. Couple of years ago, of course, there was a national outcry in the country when there was a huge fire in Nainital. But last year we had another one. And similar one, as in I'm very, very sure that, this year too, thousands of acres or hectares of forest has actually been gutted in India also. But it happens in the countryside. It doesn't happen in rich neighborhood. And that's primarily the main difference between a California fire and a Bhimtal fire or a Chamoli fire, is that in those areas, it's poor mountain trees, villagers that perhaps get affected. And for perhaps it might just be a ticker in a news channel. But we have also normalized that the forest fire that we actually have in India versus the kind of coverage that we're doing. As in my heart, of course, the kind of damage both to life and property that's happening in California, of course, also symbolic of the fact that it's actually a climate change which can knock on anybody's door. As you could be extremely rich. As we're talking about the most powerful people of the world actually being almost partially gutted or affected by climate change. So, at least it should be a wake-up call. At least by your coverage and many other coverage, we should say, fine, as much as we feel sorry for California, can we be more aware and awake and prepared for our own forest fire that perhaps will happen in a couple of months in most part of North India? But alas, it doesn't happen. Year after year, we have seen, and there's enough studies done with regard to these forest fires. But in terms of preparation, be it disaster preparation or also looking at, boundaries, zones, barricades, human causes, also look at climate change causes that perhaps in a way accentuates climate change and forest fire in that sense, very little on the ground.